Gets open for three. Dagger!
Hello. Welcome to Well Beyond the Arc, episode number 25. I'm Manoli.
And I'm Montana.
And as always, we'll be talking NBA basketball with you all for the next hour or so. Glad you all can be with us, whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening to us on Spotify, Twitch, or wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Glad that you guys are with us. Before we get started, if you haven't already, knowing that we're on a different day, we said before we're going to be switching between Tuesdays and Wednesdays until we get a new consistent day of the week going. But you won't have to look forward to find us if you just hit that subscribe button at the bottom left-hand corner, especially on YouTube here. Subscribe to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. You'll get all the notifications on when we're on next. And not only that, but you get notifications on all the other great podcasts on the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And Montana, let's get into it. New background as usual for this week. How the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm doing real good. How are you?
I'm good. It's cold and snowy in Chicagoland, par for the course in November, but yeah, doing the best that we can over here. So let's just dive in. Let's head into a state of our squads. Every week, Montana and I talk about our teams. Montana is an avid Los Angeles Lakers fan. Myself, a longtime Chicago Bulls fan, and we'll give everybody, just a couple minutes of our rants over, the last week of our team's performance. So, Montana, take it away about your Lakers, man. How they do the last week or so?
Yeah, so not a super great week record-wise. We had 4 games. We ended up 1-3 on the week. But it was really nice to see them come away with a win, especially after losing, the getting on that losing streak. Bouncing back was good to see. So they showed a little bit, and they kind of came back and showed that they can come back and have a bounce back game. So it was good to see that. I was really happy with that. Beat the Nets on Sunday, which was a great game. AD had a pretty awesome, solid week, especially that game against the Nets. He really came out and showed that he still is that player that we traded for. So it was good to see that. Couple of concerns. Obviously, the record is still not great. I believe we are 3-10 right now, or sitting somewhere around there. So record-wise, not great, but I did see a lot of improvements. But my biggest concern is LeBron. LeBron missed essentially, I think he missed the whole week potentially, except he may have played against the Clippers, but he missed a good amount of the week, several different things. And to me, that's a little concerning going forward. This early in the season, seeing him miss games is pretty concerning to me. So that's kind of my biggest negative, but overall pretty great, pretty good transition to this week. We have a small week. We play the Pistons and we play the Spurs, and I definitely can see us coming away with 2 wins. So not a great week, but a lot of improvement, and let's just hope we can see LeBron and AD on the court this week.
Yeah, that monster game that AD had, I think, what he had, 37 and 18. Big win for the Lakers over the Nets, especially without LeBron. I think I saw the box score. Troy Brown Jr. started. Between AD, Westbrook, Lonnie Walker, and those guys, they got it done. So credit to them. That's one more win than my Bulls got this week. We're sitting at 6-8 right now. Still can't eke out these wins in close games lately. Lost a close one at home to the New Orleans Pelicans, who the Bulls are playing tonight. They lost a 115-111 game, and then proceeded to get blown out at home by the Denver Nuggets. Lost by about 23 points in a lackluster effort. Did not like the effort from any of the guys. Even Ayo Dosunmu, young guy, high motor guy, but they just kind of looked like they were sleepwalking, settling for too many outside shots. Nikola Vucevic, started off in the post earlier this year. Now he's venturing out to the 3-point line a little bit. He's trying to take the Joker out there, but that didn't work out too well for him. Just Bulls got to get their act together. They're still hovering around 500, which is exactly what I expect is going to happen until Lonzo Ball gets back. I say it week after week, but not like what I'm seeing. Definitely need to get 6-man Kobe White back, but hopefully the Bulls can turn it around and get a win here. Get back to 500. Let's get a couple wins and let's get back on track, which we'll talk about more of those teams getting on track in just a second. And as always, guys, please type your questions or comments for us in the chat. We'll address them as they come forward. You guys are just as much of a part of the show as we are, so we're always clamoring to see who's going to have the comment in the random random jab of the week. Sometimes it happens in the first couple of minutes of the show. Sometimes it happens at the end, but we look forward to having you guys here. So speaking of a team that may be riding the ship or just may not be, I mean, that's our weekly soap opera as the Brooklyn Nets turn. Um, they made what I think we both agree, Montana, is the right decision in naming Jacques Vaughn the full-time coach instead of hiring Ime Udoka. We both thought this was the right move. This is a layup move, but what does this mean for the Nets, in your opinion, going forward with Jacques Vaughn at the helm?
So I think this proves that the Nets are moving away from that Kyrie KD era, because I think this hire to me was the perfect hire for them to make, and it goes without saying. Not, I mean, yeah, he's been with the Nets organization since before the KD Kyrie era. He's been an assistant, so he knows the organization. But we're also looking at a player or a coach that won a championship as a player. That goes a long way for teams. I believe it was the Spurs that was the team that he won his championship with. So you're looking at a player that has championship experience, and usually we see that transition and move over into the coaching aspect as well. So I think that it was a great move. And do I think that because he's the head coach, are they going to trade Kyrie and KD? I don't think they're going to do that for sure, but I think that they are going to look at a pretty big turnover now that they've hired him, because I think, to me, that proves that the Nets are trying to move away from that KD and Kyrie era that they've been in. So for me, I think it's huge. I think it shows that they are ready to move forward. And I mean, Ime Udoka, that would have just been the absolute worst hiring that they could have made at this point for that organization. So I think arguably they went the exact opposite and did the best possible thing they could. You're hiring someone that's been with your organization. He knows your organization, and I do think that he can help get them back on track.
Yeah, we were both dumbfounded that when we found the rumors that the Nets were going to be close to hiring Ime Udoka, and we still don't know what went down in Boston. All we know is from everything that we hear as far as rumors go, the smoke signals, no pun intended, that Matt Barnes has sent out, that it's really, really bad. Uh, that would have been on top of everything that's happening with the Brooklyn Nets right now. I can't believe they even considered him. Now, he spoke 100% agree with that. They basically, maybe they tested the waters to see how bad it would be received, and once they they got the backlash before it even happened, they're like, well, maybe we might want to cool the jets on this. Jacques Vaughn, former point guard, former third string point guard, did get a championship as a player with the San Antonio Spurs in that system. Coached the Magic for a couple of seasons, was an interim coach with Brooklyn a couple of years ago in the bubble, I believe. Coached the last 10 games and went 7-3, and then the Nets got swept. And then now he's 4-4 as the interim coach, 4-2 since Kyrie Irving got suspended. Now they're sitting at 6-9 for the season. Now they're rumored to be getting Kyrie Irving back soon. Just got an ESPN notification on that. Is Jacques Vaughn the perfect coach for these guys? I don't know. I can't say that he's a good coach or not, but I do think that they made the right move in not hiring Ime Udoka. Maybe they should have had him as a coach, for interim coach, for a handful of games, and maybe went to someone like, I don't know, a Mike D'Antoni or somebody else that's a veteran coach that can coach veteran players, that would be more of a player's coach, because obviously you got to cater to these guys, the KDs, the Kyries, and things of that nature. So right move not making Ime Udoka. Is Jacques Vaughn the right move? Who knows, but we'll see. But hopefully Jacques Vaughn gets him back on track, and we'll see what happens. So speaking of some of these surprise teams, we're probably about 12 to 16 games into the season, depending on the team's schedules. Almost 20, 15 or 20% in the season. So I think it's a good time for us to start looking. And again, we're not even at Thanksgiving yet, but I think we can start talking about some of the surprise teams, some of the teams that are coming back to earth, some of the disappointments, and some of these surprise teams that are still going. So I know that those categories are all over the place, but let's talk about the surprise teams that are coming back down to earth. Montana, I know we've talked a little bit about the Utah Jazz, but Utah Jazz is one of those teams on my list. Who else do you have?
So, biggest team that I have coming back to earth would be the Spurs. They kind of they saw some early success. They really came out swinging and making people think that they could be a team that would not just be 500, but pretty well above 500 potentially. But now I think, I mean, they're bumped back to 13th, and they're starting to kind of look like the team that I think we expected them to be when the season began. So I'd say a team that's coming back to earth the most for me would be the Spurs. I will say this though. I do agree that the Jazz might start to be going in that direction more, but they're still sitting at, I believe, third in the West. And so honestly, even though we have seen them drop a couple of games and kind of show some of their biggest holes, I still think that they are one of the more solid Western Conference teams. But again, it's so early in the season, and we've seen the Spurs, who started out really strong. I believe they were in the top five, or first and second week, and now they're down to 13th. So my top team that's coming back to earth would be the Spurs, and they're coming back to earth pretty
That's a good
quickly.
call. Yeah, the Spurs started off 6-2. I think they've lost 7 in a row, and no one expected them to get off to a good start.
No.
Keldon Johnson is looking to take that next step. Former U.S. Olympic Teams member, probably their best player right now after they traded away DeJounte Murray. But between him, um, Devin Vassell, and Jacob Pertl, those three guys are probably the best guys that the Spurs have, and then a bunch of them are just journeyman guys in their late 20s, or young guys that are have been given up on, like a Bates Diop or a Zach Collins, guys of that nature. So they still have a Hall of Fame coach in Greg Popovich. Without him, I don't think they even get off to that start. But I completely agree with you. The Spurs are one of those teams coming back down to earth. I actually have Cleveland as one of those teams that are coming back down to earth. Even though I think they're one of the more talented teams in the Eastern Conference, I think they got off to something like a 6-7-1 start. Now they've lost a couple in a row. Donovan Mitchell's been in and out of the lineup. They're sitting at 8-5 right now, which I'd love if the Bulls were 8-5. I'm sure you'd agree with your Lakers. If they were 8-5, you'd be ecstatic.
I have
But
no
eight
problem
and
with
five,
that.
they're coming back to the middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference. They'll still probably be the top half when it's all said and done. But I have Cleveland coming back. A lot of offense between Darius Garland, who put up a 51-point game earlier this week, Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley. Plenty of offense, but can these guys defend? That's going to be the key. And I think they're missing a 3-and-D guy. Maybe that can be Isaac Okoro. He hasn't proven that he can do it consistently on the offensive end yet, but those are guys that they can pick up at the trade deadline or the buyout market. And there's a guy out in Phoenix that isn't playing any, Jay Crowder. That'd be a hell of an addition to Cleveland Cavaliers. So who knows? Who knows? Well, Maddie, let's address that now. That's a heck of a question coming in all the way from Thailand. Um, Luka Doncic, is he the? Well, we could take a sidebar, Montana.
Yeah, let's do
Is
it.
Luka Doncic the best European player right now? He's definitely in the top 3.
I would say
Um,
right now he is. Yeah, I'd say right now my opinion personally, I think right now he is the best.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's playing the best. It's
Yeah.
and again, the top. When I say the top 3, it's the European holy trinity of Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. Those are the 3 guys. And of the 3 guys right now, Doncic is playing the best, followed by Giannis, and then Nikola Jokic. But you can't go wrong with any of those 3. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Luka's the top guy from Europe here. And Jay coming in with a comment of the show right now. Oh man. Get back to the surprise teams. Yeah, Cleveland was there for me. Let's go back to Utah a little bit. They started off pretty hot. Now they're 10-6. Still, again, we would love if our teams were 10-6 right now, Montana. But
I'd just take 7 wins at this point.
there you go. Um, they're doing better than most people thought, including yourself and me. They got some talent on that team, and I think they're gonna continue to surprise some people. Are they gonna be at the top half of the Western Conference? No, but I think they've proven that they're gonna be a team to be reckoned with. They're gonna be a hard out, and maybe they'll be there at the end when we talk about the play-in game, the 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds in the Western Conference, and that's still a ways for them to fall, but Utah is definitely one that I see them falling back to earth after losing a couple games, especially the Sixers. So, um, and speaking of the Sixers, let's talk about teams riding the ship. And I think for me, the Philadelphia 76ers are right there and the teams riding the ship. Who do you have in addition to the Sixers, Montana?
So I've got a couple of Eastern Conference teams actually. I've got the Sixers right there. I've got the
Yep.
Pacers in there as well. I've got the Pacers are in the mix for me. They've done a pretty decent job, of holding on. But another team that I would say is riding the ship for me would be the Knicks. And I would say that they are a team that is maybe doing it the most out of anybody. They're just a team that has been like they're either winning against teams that are like lesser than them, or they're pulling off some close victory, or they're losing to like the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they've been a team that's all over the place, and they're pulling some games off, they're pulling some wins off, and then they're just blowing certain games. But they're still sitting pretty well in the Eastern Conference at seventh right now. So for me, the Knicks and the Pacers would be the two for me behind a team such as the 76ers. But the 76ers is one of the best examples of that right now. Another team that I have is the Kings. I think they are a team that is pretty middle of the pack right now. And I mean, they beat my Lakers, and of course I hated that, but I did like seeing them beat the Nets, and the way they beat the Nets was just it was I felt really good. It was my favorite game of the year. I'm not gonna lie. I've got that for game of the year right now. But no, I'd
Okay.
say the Kings for me are right there as well, because they're kind of a team that's sticking in it, but they're still not. They still don't have the caliber to be a top six in the West team, but they're sticking in there. I mean, they're right up in the mix right now at eighth.
Yeah, I actually have the Pacers and the Kings in the next category, but for me, it's Philadelphia 76ers, like we both said. They're back to 500. Uh, Joel Embiid had himself a hell of a week, right? Putting up a career high 59 points the other night. We'll talk more about that later. And then for that 41 points, had himself 100 points in 24 hours. And one of the more interesting things about the Philadelphia 76ers is that I find is that Tyrese Maxey is balling out, and they're doing this without James Harden. They play differently when James Harden's not in the lineup. To quote Charles Barkley, when he's there, it's dribble, 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 dribble. But I see them playing a little bit more loosely, a little bit more ball movement. They still flow in through Joel Embiid a little bit or more, obviously, and he's had to pick up the scoring slack. But 76ers are riding the ship a little bit back to 500 when most teams thought they'd be at the top of the Eastern Conference. And again, it's still early, and they might end up there. For me, another team riding the ship is the Miami Heat. They're also back at 500. They got off to a little bit of a slow start, losing a lot of close games, but they've won a couple in a row uh, behind the Heroics of Jimmy Butler. Max Strus is having his best season so far. Thankfully, I have him on my fantasy team. And Bam Adebayo, even though he's not playing tonight, has played pretty solidly over the last week or so. So Miami is another team. And then the Clippers, which that's going to be an up and down team all year. They're back above 500. The whole Kawhi Leonard injury, when's he coming back? How long is he going to be out? And when is John Wall going to play? When's he going to sit? Between Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and company, they're keeping that team afloat. So Clippers are riding the ship, but they could still fall into a different category. And speaking of that next category, let's talk about surprise teams still going and still surprising folks. Montana, who's a surprise team that you have on your radar that's still surprising you?
The Trailblazers. I mean, they are a team that is sitting currently, as we record this, I believe, top in the West. They're the number one seed. And I'm not going to lie, I would have never guessed that. Of course, you've got Damian Lillard, but you really don't have, at least in my opinion, a core team built around him that can boost you to a first place seed. But they're doing it, they're getting it done. And it's not just Dame, because Dame has missed a couple of games and Dame has not been on every single game. So the Trailblazers have themselves a solid team built. Do I think they're going to be a team that's going to win a championship and have great success in the playoffs? More than likely not, but I do think that they are a team that could maybe hold on to that as well. Another team, and I don't want to say that this is a surprise, but I think after such a lackluster season last year, it kind of is the Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are looking really, really solid. And the only reason I say that they are a surprise team is because, yeah, they've got Murray. Yeah, they've got Trae Young. Yeah, they've got a solid team with Capella. They've got a really solid unit built up. But even with some of those solid pieces, they've not seen a lot of success. So it looks like it's finally clicking. And that's another team that's kind of up there for me. And then my last one would be the Wizards. The Wizards are kind of a team that I didn't expect them to be in within the top six, and right now they are currently fifth. So they're a team that's in the mix, and I think that they're a team that could be up and down and really close to 500. But right now they're a team that's staying up in the mix, and the Eastern Conference is just all over the place this season. There's so much talent, so many stacked teams. So the fact that they're still in the mix and they're a top six team, so those would be my top three ones.
Those are good calls. I'm going to go back to your Sacramento and Indiana picks because that's where I have these guys, the surprise teams that are still going. I mean, the Indiana Pacers were pegged by most to be among the worst teams in the league. I've said it many times on this show. I can't believe they traded away Malcolm Brogdon for office supplies, but someone knows what they're doing. That's why they have their jobs and we have a podcast. Tyrese Halliburton is balling out. He is averaging 20 and 10, 20 points, 10 assists per game. They got a lot of great young talent. Our I don't know if it's our favorite rookie or second favorite rookie, Benedict Mathurin. Great squad. Veteran coach and Rick Carlisle. They're still at 500. They're 6-6. Actually exciting to watch too. If you watch a couple of their games, I saw a Wizards Pacers game that I didn't fall asleep during. It was actually an enjoyable game to watch a couple weeks back. So Indiana Pacers is a surprise team for me that's still going. Sacramento Kings sitting at 7-6. They blew out the Nets. Your game of the year that you said, I think it was a 30-point win for Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox is playing himself into all-star status. The pickup of Kevin Huerter is helping them. The small forward combination of the veteran Harrison Barnes and young rookie Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, who I'm a big fan of. Great squad. Great. I mean, I'm pulling for the Kings to make that top 10 to at least get a chance at the play-in game, and they very well could. So Indiana, Sacramento. I echo your thoughts on Portland. Dame Lillard in and out of the lineup, but the addition of Jeremy Grant's been worked out a lot better than I thought it would. You got Anthony Simons, who's probably a second option as a scorer. Jeremy Grant probably best suited for a third option, but he can put up 20 points a night and play some good defense as a versatile guy. And then your picks of Washington and Atlanta. There's smoke coming. Well, smoke's not gonna like my comments about Golden State here in a minute, but Washington, great call on Washington. Kristaps Porzingis has played in almost every game that the Wizards has played. I think he's played in 13 out of 14 games, averaging 20 plus, almost 9 rebounds a game. Wizards are sneaky good. They picked up Will Barton, have a couple of solid young guys there too. Wizards are going to be in that top 10 in the Eastern Conference as well. And Atlanta, the only comment I want to make about that, 9-5 right now. And they've proven that DeJounte Murray and Trae Young can go and coexist in that backcourt. And they look pretty good together. And even I'm waiting for the middle finger emoji from Jay, but they made the Bucks look bad the other night without Trae Young. So plenty of talent on that squad, and Atlanta's going to. I think that's the first time I've been muted. But yeah, it's yeah, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. And we have to go to the disappointments, Montana. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but who's a disappointing team or two so far this season?
Yeah, so for me, one of the most disappointing teams so far is actually the Bulls. They're on my list. I think that obviously you're missing Lonzo Ball, and he is a big focal point in your offense and your defense. He's a huge part of both sides of the ball. But I still expect them to have a little bit more success. But it's early in the season. They should figure it out. So the Bulls are one of my teams, but not really as serious as the next one, which is my Los Angeles Lakers. Super disappointing. Even if I wasn't a Lakers fan, seeing a team with LeBron and Anthony Davis and even Russell Westbrook not perform how you would expect them to, it is upsetting, and it leaves a lot to left wanting. So Lakers are up there, and then but my top one, and maybe you have it on yours as well, is the Golden State Warriors. They are really disappointing. I mean, they are a team that just won an NBA championship, and they are currently 11th. That doesn't look great. That doesn't look great at all, because you would think usually when a team comes out, out of the gates after winning a championship, they're thinking of is defending their championship. And we see a lot of those teams, even if they don't run it back. Even the Lakers, after they won their championship, their next season, they had a really solid start to their season. So most championship winning teams would like to make other teams think they're going to run it back, but I guess the Warriors have a different strategy. I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't seem to be working so far, because again, they're 11th and they're really underperforming. So super long season. But how could the Golden State Warriors not be the top disappointing team when they literally just won the championship and now they're 11th? So that'd be my top one.
So I got three teams on my list. Two of the three I have the same as you. I'm gonna start with my Bulls. Uh, Smoke.
Yeah,
I'd
maybe
love to.
that's your place.
I'd love to see Steve Kerr get about 10 to 15 minutes on that Warrior squad. You know what? He would probably just sit in the corner and get a ball screen just like they do for Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Come to that 3-point line extended, and they just throw him the ball. He'd still probably hit from the outside. So yeah, I think Steve Kerr give him 10 to 15 minutes. I'd pay to see that. Um, first disappointing team for me is my Chicago Bulls. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, they're 6-8. Yeah, it's early, but they started off well. They had an impressive road win to open up the season against the Heat without Zach LaVine in the lineup. They've played Boston pretty tough. I think they've split with Boston so far. They're in close games with good teams. Even though they haven't pulled it out at the end of the games, looking at you, Philadelphia 76ers, and you're welcome. Uh, the record and even the last few games just have not looked good to me. Expecting more. Zach LaVine's in and out of the lineup. You know, yeah, we keep saying it's early, but all these wins and losses count. All 82 games counts. And as stacked as the Eastern Conference is, you can't afford to just give away games at this point, because you don't know if you're even going to make the play-in. You got to be that. You want to be one of those top 6 teams and avoid the play-in, but who knows? They might even not be 7 through 10. So Bulls are my top disappointing team so far. Second on my list is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Uh, they've added Rudy Gobert. I've been on TV a lot, and they've been up and down. They've been up and down. I saw a stat that they had the worst offensive rating. Their starting 5, which I believe was D'Angelo Russell, uh, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and I forgot who they have starting at the 3. I don't know if it's Jade McDaniels, but at one point they had that starting 5 had the worst offensive rating in the NBA. Now, granted, they're getting some block shots and rebounds and things of that nature. They can still turn around, but Anthony Edwards sometimes looks lost. Obviously, they're trying to fit in Rudy Gobert there, but 6-8, slow start. Obviously, they can turn it around. And third and final disappointing team for me is the Golden State Warriors. But the Warriors are proving two things. Well, they will prove two things. Number one, they don't really give a damn about their salary cap. We've talked about it over and over again. And they're proving that to them, the regular season doesn't matter, because that's a veteran team. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, they got 4 rings to their credit with the Warriors. They're going to get each team's best effort every night as the defending champs. Now, Steph Curry has been balling. Uh, what's been concerning is some of their young guys. Jordan Poole's been up and down. I saw that James Wiseman's going to be sent to the G League, and he was expected to be one of their top young players coming off the bench and maybe even start in front of Kevon Looney, which isn't happening. Jonathan Kuminga's been up and down. Moses Moody has been showing some flashes, but yeah, the Warriors I think are just pacing themselves right now. They're at 6-8. They're not out of it. It's still way too early. I wouldn't hit the panic button yet, but it is eyebrow raising that they're not better than what they are right now. So we shall see. Well, what's not disappointing is our next segment. It's everybody's favorite internet show or game show. It's another exciting edition of NBA Player Or. And if you were with us last week, you saw that Montana got a perfect 5 for 5 for, I believe, the 4th or 5th time. I want to say 4th time. That takes them to 83 out of 115. And what the hell am I talking about? Well, if you've been watching Well Beyond the Arc week after week, you know how the game is played. But for the newbies, we'll explain it again. Anyway, each week I give Montana the names of 5 individuals, and he has to tell me whether or not that individual is a current or former NBA player or someone from another profession. And what can that profession be? Literally anything. It can be anywhere from Sports Illustrated swimsuit models like we talked about last week, to European politicians, to famous ice skaters, to WWE wrestlers. It literally could be anyone, anything. I just pick it on the day of the podcast and we roll with it. So if Montana gets the name or gets the question right, you will hear this sound.
Victory!
Fitting we got the Mamba in that picture. And thank you again, Johnny Drama. And if Montana gets it wrong, you will hear this sound. What an apropos sound for getting something wrong. Montana, I think you got 7 in a row going back a couple of weeks. So you're 83 of 115. Jay and I have said it over and over again. We're taking you to Vegas and sitting at that roulette table with you one day. But how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like another 5 for 5.
You feeling for another 5 for 5? Okay. How familiar are you with Playboy centerfolds?
Not very familiar at all.
Well, that's good news for you because that's not the category for this week. The category this week is NBA player or famous astronaut.
Oh, wow. All right. You really threw me off with that first question.
Well, in honor, and I didn't know this happened until I watched the news this morning, and that was even an accident. In honor of NASA launching the Artemis space module, headed to the moon with some test dummies. I don't know, just sparked an idea in having astronauts on here. So anyway, if Phil Jackson once said that Vladimir Radmanovich was his favorite space cadet, so it kind of ties in. And no, Vladimir Radmanovich is not one of the questions. But anyway, let's just hop right into it.
Yeah, we got it.
Number 1, is this person a current or former NBA player or a famous astronaut? The name is Drew Eubanks. Drew Eubanks.
I'm going to go with NBA player.
Victory!
That is a good call because Drew Eubanks is a current NBA player and he plays for the Portland Trail Blazers, averaging 5.7 points per game, 4 rebounds a game. Yeah, good call. You're 8 in a row, but 1 for 1 today. Question number 2, is this the name of a current or former NBA player or famous astronaut? The name is Jim Lovell. Jim Lovell.
Oh, man. I'm going to go with astronaut.
Victory!
Johnny Drama sound never gets old. Yes, Jim Lovell, famous astronaut, most known for his efforts with Apollo 13, also a former member of the U.S. Navy. And if you've watched the movie Apollo 13 starring Tom Hanks, he plays Jim Lovell in that movie. So glad you got that one. 2 for 2. What is that, 9 in a row?
Yeah.
I've already lost track. 9 in a
row.
row. Yeah, that's why I didn't become an accountant. All right. Name number 3. Is this a current or former NBA player or a famous astronaut? The name is John Glenn. John Glenn. Man with 2 first names.
Huh. I'm going to go with astronaut.
Victory!
This effing guy, man. John Glenn. The late John Glenn. Was the 3rd American ever into space. Also a former U.S. Senator for Ohio, fighter pilot in World War II. Man, this guy was a badass. Fighter pilot in the Korean War. Oldest to fly in space at age 77. Yeah, hell yeah, he was a famous astronaut. All right, 3 for 3, 10 in a row. Whew. Question number 4. Is this a current or former NBA player or a famous astronaut? His name is Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac.
NBA.
Victory!
Can't fool this guy. Jonathan Isaac, current small forward for the Orlando Magic, currently averaging 9.3 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game. I hope everybody's at the edge of the seats because I am. He's 4 for 4 and 11 in a row. We might see the first back-to-back 5 for 5 on NBA player or. All right. Name number 5 for all the marbles. Is this a current? The look on your face was priceless, Montana. Is this a current or former NBA player or famous astronaut? His name is Trenton Hassel. Trenton Hassel.
NBA.
Flawless victory.
Wow. Yeah, even I'm impressed with myself.
Oh,
Whoa.
Wow. Wow. So that takes you, sir, to 88 out of 120. That's nearly 75%. That's crazy.
Not
And
bad.
your second consecutive 5 for 5. I got to make this. I got to go back to like the 1940s and 50s for you or something, man. But job well done. Job
Thank
well
you.
done. And
Thank you.
anybody specific that you want to thank for your efforts here today?
Oh man. I want to thank myself for having such great guessing abilities. That's who I want to thank.
Oh, well played. All right. Well, we're going to hold for a quick message here from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
Who do you want to thank? Yourself. That's classic. Well, historic moments here on Well Beyond the Arc via NBA player or. Glad you guys were here to watch it. Let's get into our good, the bad, and the ugly for this week, Montana. Who do you have for your good? And there's a few good options here.
I know this was tricky. This was hard, but I've got to go with Joel Embiid and his performances. Just unbelievable. I mean, that is a modern day Wilt Chamberlain type of performance. You don't see that type of performance that often. He is looking like he is going to make his case pretty well known for that MVP. I know we're early, but just MVP-esque performances and putting up back-to-back performances that were just monster. I mean, he had himself a great week, and I only see that continuing. And now, is he going to have games like he had every week? No, but I see that level of intensity and that level of success continuing. So Joel Embiid, but right behind him for me was Luka. It's so hard between we have too many players that are having monster performances right now. I mean, as exciting as that is, it's hard to pick because we have so many players giving up MVP caliber performances, but I've got to go with Embiid because he had a historic week.
I mean, 100 points in 24 hours. That game against the Utah Jazz, 59 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 7 blocks. He sold popcorn in the stands, beer in the concourse, led the Sixers to a much needed win. I mean, that was
huge, just
beyond huge. I mean, that's the best good that you can have this week. But I'm gonna add in a couple other ones. Well, I add one more. And Darius Garland for me, 51 points in a loss. Didn't have Donovan Mitchell, in the lineup for the Cavs. I mean, he had a 50 burger. But another guy that we haven't really talked about, not many people are talking about, one of, I think, 7 or 8 guys in the NBA that are currently averaging 30 points per game, which is insane. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's averaging 31.5 points per game. He is literally the best player in the NBA that no one talks about, no one knows about outside of OKC. So I'm going to give SGA a little love here on my good today.
Absolutely.
Who do you got as your bad for this week?
So my bad would be I simply put LeBron. And my reason for this is it's bad because there's two things that are happening. One of two things is happening. One, Father Time is starting to catch up to LeBron, and we really are seeing LeBron start to kind of be ailed with several injuries. or he's just done with the Lakers. And it's not just that. And we've seen LeBron do that before. We've seen LeBron kind of be done with an organization and kind of show that. But to me, regardless if it's father time or LeBron just being ready to go, either way, it's not positive for the Lakers, and it's not positive for the league, because it's year 20. And I don't know about you, but even people that aren't Lakers fans obviously want to see LeBron on the court having a monstrous year 20. And we just haven't seen that yet. So my bad is LeBron, but specifically it's those injuries that he's injuries. Time will tell. But either way, LeBron being out is my bad.
Yeah, the Lakers surprisingly got a win without him. He's been shooting a lot of threes. I'm not going to use this to bash LeBron, but it is interesting. Some rumors came out earlier this week about him possibly, wanting to engineer a trade to the Suns to play with CP3. If I'm the Suns, I don't know why I'd want to do that. Number one, you're taking that salary, but what do you give back? You'd have to send back Mikal Bridges. Smoke, that is a good call. Great, good song with that track. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a head scratcher for me. I don't see why the Suns would trade for LeBron, but that's why these are rumors and not facts. Anyway, bad for me this week. This might be, I don't want to say controversial, but it'll raise a couple eyebrows. Bad for me is NBA defenses. Now, granted, I grew up in the 90s where, the New York Knicks grinded a lot of 90 to 80 games. Coming off the bad boy Pistons and New York Knicks, Miami Heat and Knicks flipping guys over in the crowd. Don't want to go back to that, but Sacramento Kings scored 153 points on the Brooklyn Nets, which I didn't see the game, but that tells me that all the Brooklyn Nets were out there were a bunch of traffic cones. There's also the Oklahoma City Thunder. Look at us mentioning Oklahoma City twice in one podcast, Montana. Oklahoma City beating the Knicks, I think in Madison Square Garden, if I'm not mistaken, 145 to 135 in regulation. I think both teams were literally playing Ole defense for that game, but NBA defenses, I mean, there's been some ridiculous scores. Granted, I know the rules are catered to promote offense, and rightfully so, but you guys got to figure out something to do. Get a stop on somebody. 8 players in the league averaging 30 points per more, led by Luka Doncic, is phenomenal. But man, NBA defense is just bad. Who you got as your ugly, Montana?
So my ugly is the Brooklyn Nets. I think that, I know I had the Warriors, I think 2 weeks in a row at my ugly, but I decided to switch it up a little bit. And yeah, the Brooklyn Nets, and not just dropping a game to the Kings like they did, but just their last week as a whole. Losing, of course, I'm not complaining that the Lakers beat them, but losing to a LeBron-less Lakers when they still had, Kevin Durant, and arguably, in my opinion, a pound-for-pound better constructed team than the Lakers. It's not much better, but it's a little bit better constructed than the Lakers. So dropping a game to a LeBron-less Lakers and then just coming back to the new week and losing to the Kings, it's one thing after another. The only positive is they didn't hire Ime Udoka, and that's really the only positive you can take away from that entire situation. There's obviously some rumors that Kyrie could return, I believe, as soon as this weekend potentially, which for them would be a positive going forward. But right now they're just looking ugly, and it does not look like it's getting much better.
Yeah, for me, the ugly is a team that has as many road wins as the two of us combined. That's 0. And that's the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors road record of 0-7 so far is my ugly. Now, granted, again, still early. They're 6-1 at home, which is phenomenal, but 0-7 on the road, that's kind of odd. I'm sure they're going to turn it around, but for right now, an 0-7 road record as the defending champs, not looking pretty good.
No, not at all.
All right, as we continue our theme on today's episode of kind of our most surprised teams and coming back down to earth, let's talk about the individual players that are kind of surprising us here. And there's a number of guys, primarily young guys, that are playing better than I think most people thought. And Montana, who are a couple of those guys in your opinion?
Biggest one for me is Bol Bol, because we just haven't seen him get minutes on the court yet. My biggest thing was Yeah, you know what? He did have a lot of parts of his game that I think he needed to work on before he got more minutes, but he looks like a solid player and he's starting to put up big numbers. Now, is it translated into wins for Orlando? It's not, but I can see it translating into wins eventually because seeing him put those numbers up is good. So Bull is one for me. Another one for me is Desmond Bain. Just
Great call.
absolutely becoming, because before you think about the Grizzlies, to me at least, I really just thought about Ja, maybe Steven Adams, but for the most part, you just think of Ja. But Desmond Bain is starting to show that not only is he going to help the Grizzlies win, he is one of those star players that is going to bring them to the next level. So Desmond Bain having himself a great season. And then Zion Williamson, of course, this one's a little tricky because he's had so much hype on him since high school. Ever since the first video of him dunking came out, there's been hype. But Zion is starting to show that he looks like he's in a better place physically, and that's translated, and we're seeing a more complete game. So Zion Williamson is another one for me. And then the last one I'll mention is Jalen Green is having himself a really solid season. Now, again, is it translating to wins? No, but we can't just look at the win-loss part when we look at these players and these teams, because even with a team struggling, they could have great players on their team. And Jalen Green is one of them. He's one of the only bright spots on that Rockets team at the moment. He's putting up solid numbers. And what people don't understand is, yes, the Rockets are losing games, but because of his performances, they're staying in the games. They're staying in a lot of these games. They just can't finish it off. So those would be my top few players that have really, really came out and just shown that they've improved a lot.
Good calls. There's a number of players we can put in this bucket, right? There's young guys that were solid, that are taking their games to the next level, and that would put Keldon Johnson of the Spurs, Tyrese Maxey of the 76ers, even a De'Aaron Fox, whose numbers are kind of similar to last year's, but this time this season they're translating into wins. I'd put those guys in that category. But for me, surprises, Desmond Bain was one of the guys I actually had on my list. Solid player last year, came out of nowhere. Was averaging 18 points per game, plays solid defense, great outside shooter, and he's emerged as a solid number 2 scoring option to Ja Morant. And that's just going to make the Memphis Grizzlies even more dangerous than they already are. And wait till they get Jaren Jackson back. Whoo, man, if he can just stay on the court. So I'm with you on Desmond Bain, but the first person I wrote down was Lauri Markkanen. And I've had my eyes on Lauri Markkanen because the Bulls drafted him, and they were looking at him. It's a poor man's Dirk Nowitzki, a 7-footer that can shoot, which he's a great shooter, but he's finally getting a chance to be a focal point of an offense, or at least one of the main focal points of an offense there in Utah. He's averaging 21 and 8, and if he continues to get that opportunity, he's going to put up big numbers. So for me, Lauri Markkanen, he's finally starting to show what we thought he could be, or at least what I thought he could be. I'm glad to see him getting some playing time and having a chance to shine. So Lauri Markkanen's the first person. I mentioned this next guy, and he's often on JJ Redick's podcast, Old Man in the Three, and that's Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers. Somehow he fell to 12th in the draft a couple of years ago, probably one of the better players from that draft, but he's averaging about 21 points per game, 10 assists per game. Being the floor general, the Indiana Pacers need shooting 40+% from the 3-point arc, just playing really, really well. If the Indiana Pacers can continue to be around 500, who knows? Tyrese Halliburton could be one of those last players selected for an Eastern Conference All-Star spot. That's my bold statement. And speaking of the Pacers, I got to go with Bennedict Mathurin, the rookie. We talked about him a few times on the show. Before the season started, after the draft, I didn't even know his name. I kept calling him Benedict Cumberbatch, but I can assure you I know how to pronounce his name now. And he was that guy that was interviewed, what would it feel like to play against LeBron James? And he's the guy that came back and said, well, he's got to play against me too. And people thought, they laughed. But let's see what happens when they play against each other, right? So for me, Lauri Markkanen, Tyrese Halliburton, Bennedict Mathurin, and Desmond Bain are those surprise players. So hopefully they continue to ball out, and we'll see what happens going forward.
No, absolutely. Those are some great players.
All right. I know we have a few minutes left here on Beyond the Arc. One thing I wanted to mention, and one of these days we're going to get to the best duos in the NBA. We might have to start with it next week, Montana, but we're going to get to it. But one thing, kind of a footnote and just something interesting I found, interesting enough for me to write about, but the Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan beef. Isaiah Thomas was interviewed last week or the week before, and kind of brought up this little beef that him and Michael Jordan have had for years here out of nowhere. He was asked about how he felt about The Last Dance and Michael Jordan basically calling him an asshole. But it's just, to me, this is funny. And I think this is one of the more one-sided beefs, even though I know, Michael Jordan came out and told 6 billion people that he hated Isaiah, respected his basketball talents, but basically hated Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah hasn't let it go. Montana, is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal at all, this so-called beef?
I mean, I would say it's no deal at all. I think that it's really something that, like you said, it's very one-sided, and I don't think that I think for it to be like a real beef, it has to go both ways, and I just don't think it does go completely both ways. So I think that it's a little bit, I don't know, but it's entertaining. I mean, seeing two NBA legends like that with a beef isn't entertaining, but no, I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I don't even think. I mean, Isaiah seems to be pretty hung up on it, but I doubt MJ is giving it too much thought.
MJ's probably smoking a cigar on the golf course and kind of having a chuckle about it, knowing that he's got all that real estate in Isaiah Thomas's head. Well, look, what's more exciting than watching two 60-year-old men, trade barbs through the internet or in the media? I mean, not that Michael Jordan said anything to respond to this, but just based off his comments of The Last Dance. Look, Isaiah Thomas, Hall of Fame player. I think he gets a worse rep than he should, basically, from even the Bad Boys teams and things of that nature. I mean, those Bad Boys teams with the Detroit Pistons were some of the best teams and probably one of the more underrated squads in NBA history. Isaiah Thomas, one of the best point guards of all time. Great player. Most people, and he arguably should have been on the original Dream Team. And probably the reason that he wasn't is because the USA Basketball knew that if they selected Isaiah Thomas, they wouldn't be getting Michael Jordan. At the time, him and Magic Johnson were beefing. So, yeah, everybody knows it. You're right. If Isaiah Thomas is selected to that Dream Team, which is probably the biggest beef that Isaiah has, thinking that Michael Jordan single-handedly prevented him from being selected, which may or may not be the truth. But think about it. Would you rather have Isaiah Thomas or would you rather have Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird on the same team? And you're right, Fracas. I did write up my last blog on the Isaiah MJ beef, basically questioning whether or not Isaiah Thomas has a point in this beef. But like we said before, we believe it's a one-sided beef. But I mean, think about it. If you're USA Basketball, going back to the Dream Team thing, would you rather have Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson from a marketing standpoint, a global basketball marketing standpoint, or would you have Isaiah Thomas? I think, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think they got it right. Was Isaiah Thomas deserving of selection in the Dream Team? Yes. Did Michael Jordan say what he said on for 6 billion people to see on the Last Dance? Absolutely. But this is like 30 years ago, the stuff that happened 30, 40 years ago. Let it go. No one cares. But yeah, check out my blog on it. It'll be a pretty interesting read. Speaking of, we're coming to a close on another great episode of Well Beyond the Arc, but these aren't our only projects, as Montana is trying to take over the internet single-handedly with everything he's got going on. Montana, tell the viewers and listeners about your other podcasts and projects you have going on.
Yeah, so I have a Spotify show called Purple and Gold Zone. It is a Lakers only show. I'll talk all things Lakers. I took 1 week off, but usually it'll be every Monday. I will have a new episode. Find us at Purple and Gold Zone on Spotify. And then I have two other YouTube shows. One is called Video Game Talk. And me and my co-host just recorded our second episode, and it'll drop on Saturday. So be looking for Video Game Talk on YouTube next, dropping this Saturday. And then finally there's the Connor and Heffernan show, which is the first one that I started doing way back when, and we rebooted that show and we have 2 episodes out. You can find episode 2 of Connor and Heffernan show on YouTube, and we will be dropping the next Connor and Heffernan show episode this next weekend, so be looking out for all that stuff.
No, well done, Montana. In addition to Well Beyond the Arc, I have my blog website called the Sports Page Blog. You can find it at thesportspageblog.com. I just mentioned that the last blog I posted talked about a little bit of the Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan beef, whether or not, and taking a look at Isaiah Thomas, a little closer look, Does he deserve the bad rep that he gets? Does he have a point in this beef? And does Michael Jordan really care? I think we all know that the answer to that is no, but be sure to check it out. Again, that's thesportspageblog.com. Well, we've come to another end of the episode of Well Beyond the Arc. Please, if you haven't done so, subscribe. If you guys are interested in sponsoring the show, please let us know. We want to quit our day jobs and do this full time. I think it'd be pretty cool, don't you think so, Montana? So hit that subscribe button, help us out here, and we will see you all hopefully next week.